The drama begins with a grand party where we see Lin Shi talking about investments. On the other side, we see Yi Chung, who says, "I have chosen the best interpreter for our work, who is the most professional interpreter in the industry." Here, Lin Shi convinces Mr. James for investment due to her sharp skills. Everyone is impressed with her interpreting skills. Just then, Lin Shi gets a call. Upon hearing the call, she goes outside, takes some files from her car, and then leaves in another car. On the way, Lin Shi looks at her work and realizes that she got this work from Yi Chung's company. When she reaches there, she changes her dress in her car. Then Lin Shi goes to Yi Chung's room with her team. She introduces herself. "Hi, my name is Lin Shi, and I am from Hoshang." Yi Chung reacts to this by staring at Lin Shi. When Lin Shi extends her hand, Yi Chung does not shake hands with her. He signals to his assistant, and the assistant tells everyone, "Today we are going to launch our new product translator 1.0, which can translate multiple languages." Then Yi Chung asks some questions to Lin Shi. Lin Shi confidently answers all his questions, which impresses Yi Chung. Then he shakes hands with Lin Shi. Lin Shi says, "This is our first meeting, so you have to be careful." Yi Chung replies, "Are you sure this is our first meeting? You seem like an old friend of mine." Just then, Lin Shi gets hiccups. Yi Chung gives her a glass of water and says, "Try this remedy. It will work." Initially, Lin Shi refuses, but upon the team's insistence, she takes the glass. The remedy works, and Lin Shi thanks Yi Chung and goes to the meeting. Outside, Lin Shi tells her team member Tian, "He did all this on purpose. He wanted to embarrass me in front of everyone." Tian says, "Are you upset that you left him and now he has become a different person?" Lin Shi angrily says, "What does he think of himself?" On the other hand, Tong Xin tells Yi Chung, "Your ex-girlfriend looks quite outstanding. Why did you break up?" Yi Chung replies, "She thought I was not suitable for her." Then Lin Shi goes to the translation room where she meets her cousin Tan Sha Sha, who is a talented interpreter. After this, the event starts, and Yi Chung tells everyone about the features of Translator 1.0. When Lin Shi does the translation, everyone praises her performance. After the event, a reporter asks Yi Chung, "Your tool is as good as human translators. Can we see proof of that?" Yi Chung challenges Lin Shi, which she accepts. The translations by Translator 1.0 and Lin Shi are almost identical, which impresses everyone. Then everyone goes for dinner. When Lin Shi gets out of the car, she sees Yi Ching going with Tong Xin, who is the company director. Then everyone goes to the dining hall. Lin Shi feels very uncomfortable seeing Yi Ching, so she takes out her mobile and stands up, but her mobile's battery is dead. Just then, Tan Sha Sha comes there and says, "Your phone's battery is dead, so why are you looking at it?" Hearing this, everyone starts looking at Lin Shi, so Lin Shi makes an excuse to go to the bathroom and leaves. When she comes out of the bathroom, Tong Xin says to her, "You did a great job today." Lin Shi replies, "If that's the case, can we complete your contract soon?" Tong Xin says, "Yes, why not?" Hearing this, Lin Shi gets happy, but just then Yi Chung comes there and says, "Everything will be according to the contract." Later, everyone is drinking, but Lin Shi does not drink. Yi Chung specifically orders tea. Hearing this, Lin Shi thinks he ordered tea for her, so she says to Yi Chung, "Thanks." Yi Chung replies, "Thanks for what?" "I ordered tea for myself. I don't drink either." Hearing this, Lin Shi feels very bad. Then everyone has dinner. During dinner, Lin Shi's assistant Chen Wen asks Yi Chung, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Yi Chung replies, "Yes." Hearing this, Lin Shi starts feeling strange. When Chen Wen mentions his ex-girlfriend, Yi Chung casually says, "She was like a glass of water, neither beneficial nor harmful." Lin Shi angrily says, "How can you speak ill of your ex-girlfriend like this in front of everyone?" Yi Chung replies, "I didn't speak ill. She said the same thing about me." Just then, their spicy boiled fish arrives, and the assistant says, "What kind of spicy boiled fish is this without any chili?" The waiter, pointing to Yi Chung, says, "He asked me to remove the spices." Hearing this, Lin Shi is surprised because Yi Chung had specifically asked to remove the spices for her. Then Yi Chung receives an important call. He shows his phone to Tong Xin. Tong Xin says, "You started this issue yourself, so now handle it yourself." Yi Chung is attending the call while walking to the side when a small boy, Peter, asks on the phone, "When will you both come home?" Yi Chung replies, "Your mom and I will be back soon." Lin Shi hears all this, and her mood worsens. After the call, Yi Chung says to Mr. Yang, "The kid is alone at home, we have to go back." Then they both say goodbye to everyone and leave. Outside, Tongxin says to Yicheng, "Why did you tell your ex-girlfriend that Peter is your son?" Yicheng avoids this and says, "I had some cakes prepared for Peter. Let's get them." Later, when Tian and Lin Shi are also going home, Tian says to Lin Shi, "That dish was specifically ordered for you by Yicheng." Then Tian asks her, "You were together before? So what caused your breakup?" Lin Shi replies, "It is true that I loved him, but after living with him for 3 years, I realized there was no future with him because he was a very lazy person." Yicheng, standing behind, hears this. Tian tries to stop Lin Shi, but she doesn't stop and keeps talking about Yicheng. Just then, Yicheng arrives. Tian asks Yicheng, "What are you doing here? Haven't you left yet?" Yicheng says, "I stayed to get a cake for my son, and I heard someone called me lazy." Tian says, "No, Lin Shi called me lazy." Yicheng says, "Well, it's good that I didn't marry Lin Shi back then. If I had, I wouldn't be where I am today." Saying this, Yicheng leaves. Later, when Yicheng comes home, he is thinking about Lin Shi. Just then, Tongxin comes and asks, "Are you missing her?" Yicheng says, "No, I'm not thinking about Lin Shi." Then Tongxin asks him, "Why did you break up?" After this, a flashback is shown where Lin Shi and Yicheng are standing in a place. Lin Shi says to Yicheng, "It's been 3 years, but I don't see a future with you." Yicheng tries to convince her, but Lin Shi doesn't listen and leaves. The flashback ends, and Tongxin says to Yicheng, "I didn't think Lin Shi would break up with you over such a small thing." On the other side, Lin Shi is trying to sleep, but remembers her first meeting with Yicheng. She remembers that she was selling masks in college when Yicheng met her. Yicheng had said, "If I need a mask again, how can I contact you?" Then Lin Shi had given him her mobile number. The next day, Yicheng is crying at home and thinking about Lin Shi. Just then, his assistant's call comes. The assistant says, "Another company has launched a similar translator with a speed of 0.5 seconds, and ours is 0.9 seconds. Yicheng says, "Don't worry." Then he goes to the office and has a meeting with his investors. The investor gets angry at Yicheng and says, "You said your tool would be the fastest, but another company has launched an even faster tool." So Yicheng reduces the speed of his tool from 0.5 seconds to 0.3 seconds. The next day, when Lin Shi reaches the office, she finds out that Yicheng's company has filed a complaint against them. Mr. Yang calls Lin Shi to his office and says, "Go, look into this issue and find out why they filed a complaint." Lin Shi goes to Yicheng's company to understand why the complaint was filed. There, she meets Yicheng's assistant and asks, "Do you have any issues with our translation?" Mama says, "No, your translation was very good." Lin Shi then asks, "Then why was a complaint filed against us?" Hearing this, the assistant is also surprised and says, "I will find out." When he finds out, it turns out that the complaint was filed by Yicheng. Yicheng is busy in his meeting when Lin Shi arrives there with the assistant and says, "I need to talk to you." Yicheng says, "You are behaving very rudely. You are disturbing my meeting." Lin Shi says, "No problem, I will wait." Then Yicheng goes back to the meeting. Afterward, while Yicheng is in the meeting, he sees Lin Shi drinking in the lobby. Yicheng sends water for Lin Shi through one of his workers. Lin Shi, taking the water, asks, "What was the problem with our technology or translation that a complaint was filed against us?" The worker says, "There was no problem with your translation. Yicheng has actually decided to contract with your company for his new version 2.0. This version will be designed to translate like a human." Lin Shi says in surprise, "This is impossible." Then she goes to meet Yicheng and says, "A machine can never translate like a human." Yicheng replies, "Then we will make a version that works like a human." Lin Shi says, "Okay, our company will help you with this project." Yicheng says, "You came here to talk to me about something. Shall we go for dinner and talk there?" Lin Shi agrees. While going for dinner, it starts raining. Yicheng takes out his umbrella. Then they both reach a restaurant. Lin Shi says, "I know other restaurants, let's go there for dinner." Yicheng says, "No, after 8 years I have come here, we will have dinner in this restaurant." Inside the restaurant, Lin Shi sees a picture of herself and Yicheng on a wall. Then they discuss their old memories. Yicheng says to Lin Shi, "Don't you think what you did was wrong?" Lin Shi says, "What I did was absolutely right." Then Lin Shi apologizes and leaves. While leaving, she again sees the picture on the wall. She takes the picture down, and when Yicheng is looking at her, she throws the picture in the dustbin. When Lin Shi is going back, her heel breaks and she sits at a place. At that time, she remembers some old things. She remembers when Yicheng had proposed to her and said, "Marry me and come abroad with me." After this, when Lin Shi goes home, her grandpa scolds her and says, "There is a letter from the company for you. Are you rejecting such a big offer for your love?" Because of this, Lin Shi broke up with Yicheng. Then Lin Shi goes to a place to drink, and Tian also comes there and asks her, "Why didn't you go abroad with Yicheng back then? Was it because of your grandpa's words?" Lin Shi says, "Yes, grandpa's words reminded me of my mother. She had chosen her love over her career, and later she realized her mistake. I didn't want to repeat that mistake. Tian says, you should still tell him the truth. Lin Shi says, no, it is too late now. He is already married. Then she tells Tian, don't tell this to anyone else. Then Yi Cheng tells Tongxin, I want to withdraw the complaint against Lin Shi. Tongxin says, no, this cannot happen now. The complaint cannot be withdrawn. They are talking when a staff member informs Yi Cheng, there's a problem in the meeting room. Please come quickly. Yi Cheng and Tongxin quickly go to the meeting room, where everyone is watching a video. On the other side, when Lin Shi comes to the office, everyone there is also watching the same video. In the video, a boy analyzes the work of the translator, translates something, and points out mistakes. Then he uploads the video on social media, criticizing the translator's work and saying, it doesn't work properly. Seeing this video, Yi Cheng tells his workers, find out about the boy who uploaded this video. Then the boy who uploaded the video sees on his laptop that he has received an email from the company asking him to come for a meeting. Mr. Yang then calls Lin Shi to his room and says, there's a new project from Yi Cheng's company, and we want you to do it. Lin Shi says, I don't want to do any project for their company because there were many problems in the previous project. Mr. Yang says, I'm not asking for your opinion. Do the work you are told to do. Lin Shi takes the file and leaves. On the other hand, Yi Cheng has called the boy who posted his video to the office. The boy's name was Cheng Yao. When Cheng Yao meets Yi Cheng gives him a file. When he opens the file, it contains an offer to hire Cheng Yao. Yi Cheng also says to him, I have left the salary column blank. You can fill in your desired salary. Cheng Yao says, if I accept your offer, you will have to do something for me. Yi Cheng asks, what is that? Cheng Yao says, you have to make a statement on your behalf that a machine can never replace a human. Yi Cheng agrees to this. On the other hand, Tan Sha and Tian are returning and talking to each other. We came here to meet Yi Cheng, but Yi Cheng sent Tongxin instead. Tian says, this job was given to Lin Shi, but Lin Shi herself didn't come to meet Yi Cheng. That's why Yi Cheng sent Tongxin instead. Then Yi Cheng is checking Lin Shi's WeChat ID in his office. Just then, Tongxin comes to him and says, I went to meet them, but they want to meet with you. So I told them that Lin Shi herself will come here to meet Yi Cheng. Yi Cheng says, yes, you did the right thing. Now Lin Shi will have to come here. Tongxin says, I think this isn't just about the meeting. You want to see her, that's why you called her here. If you still like her, treat her well. Yi Cheng replies, I don't like her. I just want to make her understand that what she did to me was wrong. On the other hand, Lin Shi goes to meet the boy Cheng Yao and says to him, you used a trick in your video to prove them wrong. The truth is that their translator is really good. Cheng Yao says, still, a machine can't understand emotions, right? Lin Shi replies, we also believe that a machine cannot replace a human, but that doesn't mean we make false videos and blame someone else. Then Lin Shi offers him a job. Cheng Yao says, okay, I'm ready to work with you on one condition. I will give you a challenge. If you complete that challenge, I will work with you. Then Cheng Yao gives her a skating challenge. Lin Shi completes the challenge and confidently says, I'll be waiting for you at the office on Monday. Then Lin Shi goes to a restaurant to meet Tian, and they are having food there. Just then, Yi Cheng also comes there. Seeing Lin Shi, Yi Cheng starts to leave, but Tian brings him back and says, the food here is really great, and Yi Cheng sits with his face turned the other way. Then Tian says, I have something important to tell both of you. We are here to talk about the project, and you both cannot bring your personal matters in between. It doesn't matter to me why you both broke up 8 years ago. It would be best if we focus on our project. Yi Cheng says a bit confused, what are you talking about? Tian replies, aren't you going to give this project to Lin Shi? Yi Cheng says, the board of directors will decide that. Then Yi Cheng says a bit emotionally, and the most important thing is that Lin Shi thinks that everything I am doing here is just to take revenge on her. But that's not true at all. I have spent 8 years of my life proving that what you were thinking about me was wrong. But I think in these 8 years you have become a narrow-minded person. Saying this, Yi Cheng stands up and starts to leave. Lin Shi stops him, goes to him and says, forgive me for that day at the event, and I want to tell you that our company will give its best to this project. Then the three of them are returning in Tian's car. On the way, Tian drops Yi Cheng first. Yi Cheng starts to leave. Just then, Peter runs to Yi Cheng and calls him Dad. Lin Shi, sitting in the back, sees all this. Then they leave. Tian asks Lin Shi, are you okay? Lin Shi replies, yes, I'm fine. Then Lin Shi goes home and looks at a poetry book, reminding her of Yi Cheng. She remembers that Yi Cheng used to read this poetry to her. Thinking about all this, Lin Shi becomes very sad. On the other hand, Yi Cheng is in his office when he receives a message from an old friend who tells him about a reunion and asks him to bring Lin Shi along. Yi Cheng is reading this message when Tong Xin comes in and says, "There is a big issue." She tells him, "One of our investors, Dian, is pulling out all of his investment." Hearing this, Yi Cheng also becomes very worried. On the other hand, Tian tells Lin Shi everything and says, "We should help Yi Cheng at this time." Lin Shi says worriedly, "He is an arrogant person. He doesn't need our help." Yi Cheng, troubled by this issue, starts walking on the streets. Then he goes to a restaurant and starts eating noodles there. In the next scene, Tian meets Lin Shi and says, "All the students have organized a reunion party today, and we have to go there." Lin Shi hesitantly says, "I have to go to another party." Then Lin Shi goes to a different party with Tan Shasha. Yi Cheng reaches his reunion party but finds out that Lin Shi will not be coming. Hearing this, he becomes very upset. At the party, everyone teases Yi Cheng jokingly and says, "During college, whenever we asked you to play games, Lin Shi would stop you." Tian interrupts them and says, "Stop mentioning Lin Shi's name." Now Yi Cheng is married to another girl. Hearing this, everyone looks at Yi Cheng. Yi Cheng says, "No, I'm not married. I'm still single." Everyone is shocked to hear this. Then a girl says, "Lin Shi left Yi Cheng earlier, and now look, Yi Cheng has come back as a successful businessman. Maybe now Lin Shi regrets it." Hearing this, Yi Cheng is happy, but Tian doesn't like these words at all. On the other hand, Lin Shi is at a different party, drinking with a VIP, Mr. Sunday. Tan Shasha is also there. Meanwhile, Yi Cheng is standing somewhere when Tian comes to him and says, "Can you both give this relationship another chance?" Yi Cheng says, "Ask Lin Shi about it. She was the one who left me." Tian is about to tell the truth but remembers that Lin Shi had asked him not to. Just then, Tian receives a call and learns that Lin Shi has drunk too much and is in very bad condition. Yi Cheng hears this too and says to Tian, "Come on, I'll give you a lift." They quickly get in the car, and Yi Cheng drives quickly to reach Lin Shi. When they arrive, they see Tan Shasha and Mr. Sun taking care of Lin Shi. Lin Shi sees Yi Cheng and introduces him to Mr. Sun, saying, "This is Yi Cheng, who created Translator 1.0. Mr. Sun is impressed upon learning about Yi Cheng. Then Lin Shi says to Mr. Sun, "If you want to invest in any company, invest in Yi Cheng's company." Hearing this, Mr. Sun says, "Lin Shi's suggestions are always good." He gives his card to Yi Cheng and says, "Make sure to meet me. I need to talk to you." Just then, a man arrives and says, "I brought hangover medicine." Yi Cheng quickly takes the medicine and says, "I ordered this medicine." Then Tan Shasha says, "I'll take Lin Shi home." But Yi Cheng stops her and says, "No, I'll take her home." Yi Cheng takes Lin Shi with him and leaves. When they are driving, Lin Shi stops the car and gets something to eat from a stall. She eats happily, and Yi Cheng feels happy seeing her so cheerful. Then Lin Shi falls asleep in Yi Cheng's car. Yi Cheng takes off his coat and puts it on her, and just then Lin Shi opens her eyes. She says, "What am I doing here?" Yi Cheng says to her, "Don't you remember anything?" Lin Shi replies, "I don't remember anything." Then she says to Yi Cheng, "If you want, I can ask Mr. Sun to get you the investment." Yi Cheng replies, "I don't need it." Lin Shi says to him, "I need your project. If I get you the investment, will you give me that project in return?" Yi Cheng says, "No, I don't need it." Lin Shi says, "Okay, call me if you need it." Saying this, she leaves. When she reaches home, she sees Cheng Yao at her house. She asks him, "What are you doing here?" Grandma replies, "His grandma is my friend, and he has come here to learn skateboarding for a few days, so he will stay with us." In the next scene, Yi Cheng receives a video. He takes the video to Tong Xin and shows it to her. In this video, a child is speaking very good English. Yi Cheng says, "You remember, at the beginning of this company, we donated 100 test machines to this village, and now because of those machines, these children can speak good English." Tong Xin says, "I will contact the media right now so they can spread this video." Yi Cheng says, "I need to do an interview with this child." Both are very happy because they think they have found a solution. Then this video is shown to people in several important places. On the other hand, Lin Shi is also watching that video, where Yi Cheng donated 500 tools to children so they could learn a good language. The next day, Mr. Sun is waiting for Yi Cheng at the office. Mr. Sun makes his investment decision, and Yi Cheng makes a deal with him. Then Yi Cheng goes to Lin Shi's office to meet her. When he meets Lin Shi, he starts talking about unrelated things. Lin Shi says to him, "If you don't have anything important, I'm leaving. I have some work." Then Yi Cheng asks her to stay and goes to get candies for her. Lin Shi watches him from behind and remembers that he is married and has a son. Then she leaves. When Yi Cheng comes back with the candies, he sees that Lin Shi is not there. Then he goes home and gives the candies to Peter. Tong Xin says to him, "Did you take these candies to meet Lin Shi?" Yi Cheng says, "Yes." Tong Xin says, She helped you so much, you shouldn't have taken only candies for her. Yi-chung says, I gave her a chance, but she still left. Tong-shin says, why would she stay with you when she knows you are married and have a son? Yi-chung says, I am not married and I don't have a son. Tong-shin points to Peter and says, you told her he is your son. Now you need to clarify your words quickly. Then Tong-shin says, go to her and tell the truth. Yi-chung says, no, I won't go to her. She has to come to me. She left me, so she should come to me first. Tong-shin says, you want Lin-shi to come to you crying and reconcile with you, but that will never happen. Then Lin-shi calls Tong-shin and says, I couldn't meet you that day, so now I want to meet you. Tong-shin says to her, okay. Then Lin-shi reaches the place Tong-shin told her, where Tong-shin, her son, and Yi-chung are. When Lin-shi sees both of them, she is surprised. Tong-shin says to her, today is my son's family day, so I brought him here, and that's why I called you here as well. Then Tong-shin gets a call and says, I have some urgent work. I need to leave. She then takes Yi-chung aside and says, I'm giving you a chance to tell her the truth. She then starts to leave. Peter says, the family games happening here require 3 people to participate. Then Tong-shin says to Lin-shi, you can take my place. Lin-shi says, how can I participate? Tong-shin says, no problem. You can say you are Peter's aunt. The games start, and they all try their best to win and enjoy a lot. Then Yi-chung goes to wash his hands. While washing his hands, he sees Lin-shi standing somewhere. He splashes water on his face and goes to Lin-shi and says, can you help me? Lin-shi starts to clean his face. Then she gets nervous and gets hiccups, so she leaves. Then Yi-chung is standing and watching Lin-shi from a distance. Peter comes there and says to him, do you like her? Yi-chung says, yes. Then Peter says, if she helps me win this game, I will like her too. Then they play another game, and Lin-shi sprains her ankle. Yi-chung picks her up and brings her back. After the game, they all come back, and Lin-shi is unable to walk. So Yi-chung picks her up and takes her inside the house. When they get inside, Tong-shin is already there. Lin-shi says to Tong-shin, don't misunderstand, I hurt my leg, so Yi-chung brought me here. Lin-shi then says, sorry, I created a disturbance in your family. Then Lin-shi starts to leave, and Tong-shin says to her, we are not a family. I am divorced and Peter is my son. We are very good friends, so I stay here, and I don't like Yi-chung at all. Yi-chung then says, you two can talk about whatever you needed to discuss. Tong-shin says to Lin-shi, it's Peter's study time, so I'm going to teach him. Then Tong-shin says to Lin-shi, whatever you needed to say it to Yi-chung. Yi-chung then says to Lin-shi, did you think Peter was my son? Peter is not my son. If you thought so, you should have asked me. Lin-shi says angrily, we don't ask such questions about our clients. Yi-chung says, she is a very good friend of mine, and Peter is her son. Lin-shi, changing the topic, says, now we should talk about work. Yi-chung says, I'm very hungry. Let's eat first, then we'll talk about work. He then starts cooking, and Lin-shi asks him, do you know how to cook? Yi-chung says, yes. Lin-shi says, earlier you didn't know how to cook. Then they are eating, and Yi-chung has made spicy food. When Lin-shi tastes it, she doesn't like it. Yi-chung asks her, what happened? You don't like spicy food? Earlier you used to eat very spicy food. Lin-shi says, yes. Earlier I used to eat spicy food, but now I don't eat spicy food because of my stomach. They are talking when Yi-chung's friends arrive. They say to him, do you remember you have to go out with us? Yi-chung says, yes, I remember. Lin-shi then thinks that Yi-chung will not talk about work and will enjoy with his friends, so she starts to leave. Yi-chung says, wait, I'll give you a lift. Lin-shi says, no, I'll go by myself. Your friends are waiting for you. Then she leaves. When Lin-shi reaches the parking, Yi-chung also follows her. Yi-chung says to Lin-shi, don't you talk about anything other than work? Lin-shi says, you go. Your friends are waiting for you upstairs. Then she leaves. At night, when Lin-shi is sleeping, she smiles, remembering Yi-chung's words. Just then, she wakes up and sees Yi-chung sitting in front of her. She asks him, when did you come here? Yi-chung says, I just arrived. Lin-shi asks him, why did you come here? Yi-chung says, I came to check on your leg. How is your leg now? Lin-shi says, it all feels like a dream to me. Yi-chung says, no, it's real. Then he kisses her, and Lin-shi falls asleep again. The next morning, Lin-shi wakes up with severe stomach pain. She goes to the bathroom and finds Chung Yao already there. She stands outside and says, hurry up and get out. As soon as Chung Yao leaves, she quickly goes into the bathroom. Then she goes to the office as usual. There, Tian asks her, what happened? She says, yesterday I was having dinner with a client. I ate spicy food there, which is why I have stomach pain. Tian calls Yi-chung and tells him, yesterday, Lin-shi ate spicy food with you, and now she has stomach pain and isn't resting. So Yi-chung quickly goes to Lin-shi's office to meet her. When Yi-chung arrives at the office, he says to Lin-shi, let's go, I'll take you to the hospital. But Lin-shi refuses. Then Yi-chung sends medicine through a delivery boy. Lin Xi is surprised to see the medicine and wonders who sent it. She calls Tian and asks him, "Did you send this medicine?" Tian, who is with Yi Chung at that time, says, "I didn't send the medicine." He then tells Lin Xi not to take the medicine and says, "Who knows who sent this medicine?" Then Yi Chung takes the phone and says to Lin Xi, "I sent the medicine, so you can take it. It's safe." Lin Xi then takes the medicine to her room and looks at it. There are some other things that Yi Chung sent for her. Seeing these things, she goes to the balcony and sees Yi Chung's car parked below. She goes to him and sits in his car. Yi Chung says to her, "We should start everything anew. I think we should forget the past and start afresh." Yi Chung also says, "I still love you very much." But Lin Xi refuses and leaves. Then Yi Chung goes home and he is very happy. Tongxin asks him, "Why are you so happy?" Yi Chung says, "Today I told Lin Xi that we should start over. I also told her that I still love her very much." Tongxin asks him, "What did Lin Xi say?" Yi Chung says, "She refused." Then Tongxin asks, "Why are you still happy?" Yi Chung says, "I'm happy because I told her my feelings today." The next day, Yi Chung and Tongxin are in the office when they find out that Peter is missing from school. They quickly rush to Peter's school. When they arrive, they check the CCTV footage. From the footage, they find out that Lin Xi took Peter. Lin Xi and Peter go to an ice cream shop. There, Peter asks for ice cream, but Lin Xi refuses and says, "3 ice creams are too much." Peter insists, but Lin Xi stands firm. Just then, Tongxin and Yi Chung arrive. Yi Chung asks Lin Xi, "Why did you take Peter without informing?" Lin Xi replies, "Peter called me and asked me to take him, so I brought him here." Tongxin says, "Peter is sick and shouldn't eat ice cream. He lied to you to bring you here." She then takes Peter and leaves. Yi Chung then says to Lin Xi, "Now that we are here, let's have some ice cream." Lin Xi refuses, but just then another couple arrives. The ice cream shop manager announces, "If any couple kisses each other, they will get free ice cream." Yi Chung immediately kisses Lin Xi on the forehead. Lin Xi angrily says, "What are you doing?" Yi Chung smiles and says, "I wanted free ice cream." Lin Xi gets even angrier and leaves. Yi Chung also goes outside following Lin Xi and tries to talk to her, but she is leaving. Lin Xi says, "I need to go home." Then Yi Chung takes her to her home. When they reach her home, Yi Chung says, "I need to use the bathroom." Lin Xi takes him inside her house. Then he sees Chung Yao there, and he gets very angry. He asks Lin Xi, "What is he doing here?" Lin Xi explains, "He is a relative of Grandma's friend, and he has come here to stay for a few days." When Yi Chung goes to the bathroom, he sees both their toothbrushes, which look exactly the same. Seeing this, Yi Chung gets very angry. When Yi Chung comes out of the bathroom, Lin Xi starts making a drink for him. He is standing there when Chung Yao comes and says, "You haven't left yet?" Hearing this, Yi Chung angrily sits on the sofa. Lin Xi then brings him the drink. Then Yi Chung and Lin Xi sit together and look at something on their mobile. Seeing this, Chung Yao doesn't like it, so he says to Lin Xi, "I'm going to make tea for you." Yi Chung also says, "Bring some for me too." Then Chung Yao goes to the kitchen, feeling very angry. He calls Lin Xi and says, "I can't find the stuff." Lin Xi then helps him, and they both spend some time looking for things in the kitchen. Then Chung Yao says, "I was thinking of making special coffee for you." Lin Xi says, "Okay." Then he makes the coffee and sits between them. Chung Yao gives the coffee to Lin Xi. Yi Chung asks him, "Where's my coffee?" Lin Xi gives her coffee to him and says, "You drink this." Chung Yao doesn't let him take the coffee and says, "I made this coffee especially for Lin Xi. I'll make more for you." Then, unwillingly, Chung Yao goes to make coffee for Yi Chung and brings it to him. Later, Yi Chung is at home and starts searching the internet about Chung Yao. Tongxin comes and asks him, "Why are you searching about him?" Yi Chung says, "He is staying at Lin Xi's house on rent, so I'm searching about him because he is trying to get close to Lin Xi." The next day, Yi Chung meets Lin Xi and asks her, "Are you ready for the competition?" Lin Xi smiles a little and says, "Yes, we are fully prepared, and we will get this project." When Lin Xi starts to leave, she gets back pain. Yi Chung massages her and then takes her to a yoga center. There, Lin Xi does yoga and falls asleep. Yi Chung is talking to her, but when he turns around, he sees Lin Xi has fallen asleep. The competition day arrives, and all participating companies give their presentations. Later, voting takes place, and Lin Xi's company wins. Everyone congratulates Lin Xi. When everyone is having dinner, Yi Chung asks Lin Xi, "Did you take the medicine?" Lin Xi says, "Yes, I did." Hearing this, Chung Yao asks Lin Xi, "Did Yi Chung give you that medicine?" Lin Xi answers yes. Then everyone starts talking and asks Yi Chung, "Why did you go abroad?" Yi Chung says, "I went abroad just for a girl because I thought I was not suitable for her, so I left her." Chen Wen asks, do you still like your ex-girlfriend? Yi Chung is about to answer this question when Chung Yao says, you should go back to her quickly. Maybe she is still waiting for you. Hearing this, Yi Chung becomes happy, and Lin Shi quietly drinks. Yi Chung then asks Chung Yao, if I want to win back my ex-girlfriend, what should I do? Chung Yao says, write letters to her, send her flowers, take her shopping, or to a movie. Lin Shi tells Chung Yao to keep quiet. Chung Yao says, I'm not chasing any girl, just helping her. Later, when everyone is going home, Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, I'll drop you off. Then Yi Chung comes to drop Lin Shi and Chung Yao home. Lin Shi says to Yi Chung, I want to talk to you. They go aside to talk, and Lin Shi says, I can't stop you from speaking in front of everyone, but stop misguiding others. And if my refusal has hurt you, I apologize. Yi Chung says, I understand. Then he starts to leave, and Chung Yao comes to Lin Shi and says, Yi Chung is a bit strange, always talking about his ex-girlfriend. Lin Shi says to Chung Yao, I am Yi Chung's ex-girlfriend. Hearing this, Chung Yao is shocked. After returning home, Yi Chung asks Tong Xin, how should I win Lin Shi back? Tong Xin asks Yi Chung, who are the people close to Lin Shi? To explain, Yi Chung draws a chart on a board. The next day, Yi Chung goes to Lin Shi's house with Peter. When Lin Shi opens the door, Yi Chung says, why, we came to meet Grandma Li, but unfortunately, Grandma Li is not at home. Yi Chung signals to Peter, and Peter goes to Lin Shi and says, I missed you a lot. Yi Chung says, if Peter is missing his aunt, let's wait for Grandma Li inside the house. Then Yi Chung sits on the sofa, and when Lin Shi is about to sit somewhere else, Peter pushes her to sit next to Yi Chung. A little later, Grandma Li arrives, and Yi Chung says to her, Peter is a big fan of Shakespeare. Grandma makes Peter her student, and he becomes happy. Grandma Li then asks Yi Chung, are you Lin Shi's client? Yi Chung says, I've known her for a long time. Just then, Chung Yao calls Grandma Li to the kitchen and says, do you know who this is? He is not just Lin Shi's client, but also her ex-boyfriend. Hearing this, Grandma Li says, so he has come here to win Lin Shi back. Then Chung Yao asks Grandma Li, whose side are you on? Grandma Li says, I'm on your side. Then it's lunchtime, and Yi Chung says, today, I will cook the food. Grandma Li tells him her favorite dish. Then Lin Shi, Chung Yao, and Yi Ching go to the market to buy groceries. Yi Ching is holding groceries in his hands and says to Lin Shi, take my mobile out of my pocket and pay the bill. When Lin Shi is taking the mobile out of his pocket, they come very close to each other. Seeing this, Chung Yao feels very jealous. Then Yi Chung is cooking at home, and he cuts his hand. Lin Shi starts to bandage him. Seeing this, Grandma Li says, they are a perfect match. Seeing all this, Chung Yao gets very angry and says to Grandma, you are not helping me at all. Then Yi Chung brings the cooked food, and everyone sits down to eat. Yi Chung says to Grandma, try this dish. I made it. Tell me how it is. When Grandma tries the fish, it tastes very delicious. But then Chung Yao stops her. Grandma says, it's not that good. Yi Chung says, then I will make it again and again and practice so it becomes good. Grandma says, you can come here and practice. Then Peter and Yi Chung are going back from Lin Shi's house. Peter says, I performed well today, didn't I? Yi Chung says, yes. Peter then says, then as promised, will you take me to have ice cream? Yi Chung says, yes, I'll take you tomorrow. Then Peter says, I'm worried about you. You are so good. And that boy will be with Lin Shi all day. I can't help you because I have to go to school. Just then, an agent is showing a house to her client, and Yi Chung gets an idea. He says, I have an idea. Peter asks, what is the idea? Yi Chung says, I won't tell you now, I'll tell you later. Saying this, Yi Chung takes Peter with him. Then Lin Shi calls Chen Wen to her office and gives her the file she translated. She says, you've made many mistakes in this. I think you don't want to work. Because of your mistakes, I'm cutting your 1 month's salary. Saying this, she leaves. Chen Wen gets very angry and deletes an important file from Lin Shi's laptop. The next day, there is a knock on Lin Shi's door, and when she opens it, Yi Chung is standing there. Yi Chung says, I am now your new neighbor. Just then, Chung Yao comes there angrily and says, did you shift here on purpose? Yi Chung says, the service apartment was expensive and far from the office, so I came here. Lin Shi says, if the introduction is over, can I leave? Then Yi Chung asks for her help in unpacking. Lin Shi goes to his house, and when she's about to spread the bedsheet in Yi Chung's bedroom, Yi Chung arrives. As soon as Lin Shi turns around, she starts to fall and grabs Yi Chung. They both fall on the bed and come very close to each other. Lin Shi quickly pushes Yi Chung away. Then Lin Shi sees a stuffed toy in Yi Chung's hand and remembers that she had gifted it to him. Later, Ling Fang asks Lin Shi to take care of his dog. Lin Shi initially refuses, but Ling Fang leaves the dog outside her house and leaves. Yi Cheng also helps and brings the dog to his house. Both take care of the dog together. Lin Shi says, "Get a blanket for it." As soon as Yi Cheng comes back with the blanket, Lin Shi gets up to leave and bumps into Yi Cheng. Lin Shi says to Yi Cheng, "You cover it, I'm leaving." Yi Cheng stops her and says, "You can come here before 8 a.m. and after 10 p.m. Lin Shi is surprised. Yi Cheng says, "I have kept this dog in my house, but you will also take care of it." Lin Shi agrees. The next day, Yi Cheng meets Lin Shi and asks, "Do you need a ride?" Lin Shi says, "No, I have a car." Saying this, she leaves. Then Lin Shi goes with her team to tour Yi Cheng's company, where Yi Cheng tells them about his products. Seeing an old photo of Yi Cheng, Lin Shi says, "Going abroad was your best decision." Then Lin Shi and Cheng Yao are standing on their balcony, discussing new translation words. Yi Cheng hears their conversation and suggests a word, but Lin Shi doesn't find it catchy. Then Yi Cheng says to Lin Shi, "It's 10 o'clock, now come home and take care of this dog." Lin Shi goes to Yi Cheng's house and Ling Fang's dog also comes to her. Lin Shi starts bathing the dog and Yi Cheng helps. He comes to give shampoo to Lin Shi, and at the same time, Lin Shi is coming out, and they bump into each other. Then Yi Cheng gives the shampoo to Lin Shi, and Lin Shi also says "thank you" to him. The next morning, Lin Shi shows Yi Cheng the translation of his slogan. Seeing this, Yi Cheng is impressed. He says, "All about China. I really like this line." Then a lady writes an article on the internet, questioning Yi Cheng's statement. She criticizes Yi Cheng's machine translation concept and writes, "UE technology, don't you feel ashamed?" The article goes viral. Then Yi Cheng is coming out of a cafe with Tong Xin. Just then, a lady in a car observes them closely. She calls someone and says, "The job is done." In the next scene, the same lady, whose name is Lisa, meets a man in a park. The man gives her money for the job. The next day, people gather outside Yi Cheng's office to demand a refund for his translator tool. They say, "This tool doesn't work, we want our money back." On the other hand, reporters also come to the UE technology office. Tong Xin, reading the article, angrily says, "How can someone write that our translator tool is fake?" Yi Cheng says to Tong Xin, "Give a strong statement." Then when Lin Shi finds out about all this, she also writes an article. Lin Shi's article gets published, and Tong Xin says, "This article is very well written, which has changed everyone's views about us." At night, Yi Cheng is standing on his balcony and sees that Lin Shi has come home. He deliberately stands outside his door and says, "You just got back too?" Lin Shi says, "Yes." Yi Cheng says, "The dog is hungry, come and feed it." Saying this, he goes inside. Lin Shi also comes inside his house and says, "It's not hungry right now. When it gets hungry, the food is kept there, you can give it." Lin Shi starts to leave, but Yi Cheng stops her and says, "You must have heard about the crisis in my company. Don't you want to say anything to me?" Lin Shi says, "Do you want me to make a statement with you?" Yi Cheng doesn't like Lin Shi's answer at all. He says, "I have realized that you only consider me a client. You don't need to feel sad or worried for me. Maybe I got a little too emotional." Hearing this, Lin Shi feels bad. She is about to say something when she sees Yi Cheng's expressions and realizes he is doing this on purpose. When she turns his face towards her, she sees Yi Cheng laughing. Lin Shi says, "Do you think this is a joke?" Yi Cheng laughs and says, "I haven't seen you in this state for a long time." Lin Shi tells him to be quiet. Just then, Lin Shi gets a call from Tian. She goes outside to attend the call, where Tian is surprised to see her and says, "Did you change your house?" Just then, Yi Cheng also comes there and says, "This is my house." Tian is even more surprised. Then he comes inside and tells them about an article written by Lisa. Lin Shi says, "It's that same Lisa." Tian says, "Lisa was an intern in our department, but Lin Shi fired her." Yi Cheng understands that Lisa wants to take revenge on them. Everyone gets very angry at Lisa. Seeing Tian, Lin Shi, and Yi Cheng together, Tian jokes, "Are you guys living together now and have adopted a dog too?" Lin Shi clarifies, "This dog is Ling Fang's and it's only temporary here." Then Yi Cheng and Lin Shi go to meet some people and invite them to the press conference, but no one agrees to come to their press conference. Exhausted, they rest at a cafe. Lin Shi is very worried and says, "First, we should find Lisa to understand who is behind this." Then Yi Cheng gets a call from Tong Xin, so he goes outside to take the call. Tong Xin says, "Lin Shi has angered many people in the industry, and now you have to cut your connection with Lin Shi." Yi Cheng refuses, but Tong Xin says, "You will have to put your feelings aside and make a decision." Lin Shi overhears their conversation and talks to Yi Cheng about leaving the project. She says, "This project doesn't depend only on me, but many people's hard work is involved." Yi-chung stops her and says, "I'll find another solution." Then Lin Shi suggests, "Release version 2.0 soon, which is better than 1.0, so people forget about the previous problems." Yi-chung approves this idea. After this, Yi-chung forcibly takes Lin Shi with him in the car. When Lin Shi wakes up, Yi-chung is not in the car. She goes outside and sees that she is in a hospital. Yi-chung is talking to a doctor. Dr. Fang meets Lin Shi and asks her to rest. Lin Shi asks Yi-chung, "What is all this?" Just then, a patient comes, who is an old man and has high blood pressure. Dr. Fang says, "First, we need to understand why the blood pressure is high." Yi-chung shows Lin Shi an AI-powered diagnostic machine developed by his company. Then, the old man's checkup is done, and the machine detects that he may have a cerebral infection. Yi-chung says, "Get it confirmed at a big hospital." Lin Shi is also the old man's son doubts at first, but Yi-chung explains, the machine's accuracy rate is 90%. Lin Shi is also observing everything carefully. Yi-chung gives his car to the old man's family to take him to the hospital. Lin Shi asks him, "Did you do all this to show me?" Yi-chung says, "Yes." Lin Shi says, "We should go back." Yi-chung says, "We can't go back because we don't have a car." Then Yi-chung and Lin Shi walk from there. On the way, Lin Shi asks, "Do you want to introduce your AI doctor at the press conference?" Yi-chung says, "If people see it, the criticism will stop." Lin Shi suggests, "Release it at the press conference." Yi-chung says, "I'll release it when I'm satisfied with its performance." Then they both have dinner at Dr. Fang's house. During dinner, Dr. Fang's wife says, "Our health center has become popular because of the AI doctor." After dinner, Lin Shi calls her office and says, "I won't be able to come tomorrow." After this, Lin Shi gets a call from Cheng Yao, who asks her, "Where are you?" Lin Shi says, "I'm out and I'll return home tomorrow." Then Cheng Yao sees Yi-chung on the phone there and gets very angry. Yi-chung takes the phone from Lin Shi and says, "Lin Shi is safe, and there's no need to worry about her." Saying this, he cuts the call. Lin Shi gets angry at Yi-chung for this. Yi-chung says, "Cheng Yao is following you." Then Lin Shi takes her phone from Yi-chung and says, "There's nothing like that, it's just your imagination." Yi-chung says to Lin Shi, "I gave you time to think, but if a love rival comes, I won't let him get close to you because I didn't promise that." Lin Shi replies, "I know how to deal with my things, don't worry about me." Yi-chung doesn't like this and leaves. At night, Yi-chung gets disturbed by Dr. Fang's loud snoring and goes outside. At the same time, Lin Shi also gets disturbed by his wife's snoring and comes out with her laptop. Lin Shi sees that Yi-chung is already working. They both ask each other, "Can't you sleep?" and then start working. Then Yi-chung checks his algorithm by placing Lin Shi's hand on his AI doctor's machine, but doesn't tell Lin Shi. When Lin Shi insists on seeing it, they playfully wrestle for the tablet and come close. Then Lin Shi sits down angrily, and Yi-chung tells her, "There is an issue with your physiological periods." Hearing this, Lin Shi gets angry. She chases Yi-chung and is about to throw oranges at him. Yi-chung calms her down and says, "The machine's report also provides treatment options." Hearing this, Lin Shi gets even more annoyed. Yi-chung says to Lin Shi, "I need your help to test the AI doctor." Lin Shi initially refuses, but then agrees. While massaging Lin Shi, Yi-chung asks her, "Why did you break up?" Lin Shi just says, "I thought you weren't good for me." Then they talk and fall asleep there. In the morning, Lin Shi is sleeping with her head on Yi-chung's shoulder. Dr. Fang and his wife wake up in the morning and are happy to see Lin Shi and Yi-chung together and say, "They look good together." Yi-chung hears them and says, "Be quiet so Lin Shi's sleep isn't disturbed." Then he takes Lin Shi to the room, lays her on the bed, covers her with a blanket, and leaves. Later, when they are going back, Yi-chung gets a call from Tongshin. Tongshin says, "Check your phone." Yi-chung checks his phone, and they both watch a video. In the video, a man with his face covered says, "I am a translator, and I have studied UE's translation tool. This tool is accurate, but it lacks emotions, which can never replace human translation." Seeing this, Lin Shi says, "Who is attacking UE?" Yi-chung says, "I don't know either." Yi-chung and Lin Shi reach home. Lin Shi comforts Yi-chung and says, "Don't worry, we'll find a solution." Yi-chung smiles and says, "This disaster is a blessing for me." Lin Shi, surprised, asks, "Why do you call it a blessing?" Yi-chung says, "At least because of this, you're with me." Hearing this, he tries to get close to Lin Shi, but Cheng Yao knocks on the car window and disturbs them. Lin Shi comes out and asks Cheng Yao, "What are you doing here?" Cheng Yao says, "I was waiting for you." He takes Lin Shi away and says goodbye to Yi-chung. Yi-chung looks closely at Cheng Yao's watch and remembers that the man in the video was wearing the same watch. The next day, there is a press conference where all the media and technology industry people come. There, Yi-chung demonstrates Translator 2.0. Everyone is very impressed. On the other hand, Chen Wen, who is now leaving, says to Tongxin, I want to make a documentary on Yui's new product. Tongxin says, that's a great idea. Then at night, Yi Cheng goes to Lin Shi's house, but Cheng Yao says she is not at home. Yi Cheng still comes inside and says, I came to talk to you about something important. Then Yi Cheng talks to Cheng Yao about the live broadcast. Cheng Yao gets a little nervous and says, how did you know I did that broadcast? Yi Cheng mentions the similarity of his watch, which the broadcaster also had. Cheng Yao tries to hide his watch, but Yi Cheng gives him another piece of evidence, the broadcast account number, which belongs to Cheng Yao. Finally, Cheng Yao confesses, I did that broadcast, and I did it because I didn't want you to be defeated using unfair tricks. I did it all for Lin Shi. When Yi Cheng is about to leave, he says to Cheng Yao, you will never be able to win Lin Shi. The next morning, Cheng Yao gives Lin Shi an event card. Lin Shi says, I have meetings, so I might not be able to come. Cheng Yao, getting emotional, says, our friendship started because of skateboarding, and I don't want to lose my friend. Hearing this, Lin Shi arrives at the event. Seeing Lin Shi, Cheng Yao becomes very happy. During the event, Cheng Yao says to Lin Shi, if I win the championship, will you give me a gift? The competition starts, but Cheng Yao falls while doing stunts and gets injured. Still, he doesn't give up and performs again. In the end, Cheng Yao wins the competition. After winning, Cheng Yao expresses his feelings. He writes a message while skateboarding with glitter and spray, I love Lin Shi. Seeing this, Lin Shi feels very awkward. Cheng Yao goes to Lin Shi and says, I want my gift, and that gift is for you to become my girlfriend. But Lin Shi politely apologizes and refuses. Then she leaves. Lin Shi rejected Cheng Yao's proposal, which makes him very sad and angry. Taking out his frustration, he even breaks his championship trophy. After coming home, he goes to his room and starts packing his clothes, feeling very angry inside. Meanwhile, outside, Peter is reciting a poem to Grandma Li. Hearing this, Cheng Yao gets irritated and comes out saying to Peter, stop reciting the poem. But Peter, to tease him more, starts reciting the poem even louder. Cheng Yao, getting annoyed, says, I need some peace for a while. Peter, mocking him, says, were you rejected? Hearing this, Grandma Li asks Cheng Yao about it, but he denies it. Peter still doesn't stop and jokingly says, Lin Shi will only choose my dad. Saying this, Peter runs inside the house and Cheng Yao chases him, but while running, Cheng Yao falls. Seeing this, Tongxin comes to help, but Cheng Yao says, I'll get up myself. Seeing his condition, Tongxin talks about calling an ambulance, but Cheng Yao refuses. After a while, Cheng Yao packs his things and starts leaving the house. Grandma Li tries to stop him and talks about calling Lin Shi, but Cheng Yao refuses and leaves the house. Tongxin says, we should follow him because Cheng Yao needs to go to the hospital. Grandma Li thanks Tongxin. Cheng Yao, angrily leaving, is approached by Tongxin, who says, get in the car and go to the hospital. But Cheng Yao refuses. Then Cheng Yao gets busy on the phone, and Peter tells his mom, Cheng Yao is booking a hotel for himself. Hearing this, Tongxin goes outside and says, if you don't have a place to stay, come to my house. Cheng Yao initially refuses, but when Tongxin jokingly says, it's going to rain, he agrees. Tongxin takes him to her house and tells him to stay in Yi Cheng's room. Hearing this, Peter says, Mom, this is Dad's room. Tongxin hushes him. At night, Yi Cheng is watching Cheng Yao's proposal video for Lin Shi and feels sad. Just then, Yi Cheng gets a call from Tongxin, and she tells him everything. Hearing this, Yi Cheng angrily says, how can you let my love rival stay in my room? Tongxin tries to explain, but he doesn't listen and asks Tongxin, whose side are you on? Tongxin hangs up without saying much. When Lin Shi comes home, Yi Cheng meets her and says, I want to show you something. Lin Shi asks, is it work-related? But Yi Cheng shows her the video of Cheng Yao's skateboarding event. Lin Shi gets confused and pauses the video, asking, what does this mean? Yi Cheng says, Cheng Yao is very young and doesn't know anything about love. Lin Shi says, this is my personal life. Do I have to account for my personal life to you now? Then, Lin Shi starts to leave. Yi Cheng starts pretending to have shoulder pain and says, this pain has been there since you used my shoulder as a cushion. Lin Shi tells him to rest, but Yi Cheng refuses. While Lin Shi is massaging him, Yi Cheng jokingly says, I'm enjoying this a lot. Lin Shi gets irritated and starts hitting him. Then, Lin Shi goes back home and asks Grandma Li about Cheng Yao. Grandma Li tells her everything. Then she calls him, but Chung Yao doesn't answer. The next day, Yi Chung goes to work and sees Chen Wen and her team. Yi Chung asks Chen Wen, "What's going on here?" Miss Chen Wen says, "I'm shooting a documentary on UE." On the other hand, Lin Shi is in a meeting, and Chung Yao comes and submits his work. When everyone leaves, Lin Shi stops Chung Yao and says, "Come back home and stop bothering Tong Xin." Chung Yao listens to her and says, "I left home on my own." Then Lin Shi explains to him, "What you think is love might not be real love." Then Chung Yao tells Lin Shi, something is going on between Yi Chung and Chen Wen. Lin Shi is shocked to hear this and says, Yi Chung was quite popular during college, and Chen Wen was also famous at that time. If they are together, it looks good. Hearing this, Chung Yao feels a bit sad and asks, "Won't you be hurt?" Lin Shi says, "Why would I be hurt?" Then Chung Yao starts to leave, but he begins to fall, so Lin Shi helps him. Yi Chung is also watching this from outside. He calls Lin Shi outside and asks her to put on a microphone. Lin Shi starts putting on the microphone for him, but Yi Chung, feeling irritated, says, "Skateboarders are always bad." Hearing this, Lin Shi gets angry and says, "Let Chen Wen put on the microphone." Yi Chung asks, "Are you feeling jealous?" Lin Shi leaves. In the next scene, Chen Wen is going to Yi Chung's house when she meets Lin Shi. Chen Wen says to Lin Shi, "I came to meet Yi Chung." Then she knocks on Yi Chung's door. Yi Chung opens the door and asks, "What are you doing here?" Chen Wen says, "I came to record some scenes of your house, but my cameraman got caught up in some urgent work, so he couldn't come today." Hearing this, Yi Chung says, "If the shoot isn't happening today, you can leave." Chen Wen says, "So what if the shoot isn't happening today? Can't we spend some time together?" Yi Chung directly answers, "If there's no work, I don't want to waste my time." Chen Wen says, "Let's have lunch together." Yi Chung invites Lin Shi to join them for lunch. Lin Shi initially refuses, but after thinking for a while, agrees and comes for lunch. During lunch, Chen Wen deliberately steers the conversation towards her and Yi Chung's college days. She says in front of Lin Shi, "During college, Yi Chung often came to my house for dinner." This makes Lin Shi a bit uncomfortable, but she stays silent. Then Chen Wen shows an old photo from her phone gallery, in which she and Yi Chung are together. She shows it to Lin Shi and says, "Isn't this photo lovely?" Lin Shi's mood worsens and she leaves, hiding her emotions. Yi Chung feels bad seeing Lin Shi upset. He gets irritated with Chen Wen and says, "You didn't need to say such things. You know I still have feelings for Lin Shi." Chen Wen feels a bit awkward hearing this, but stubbornly says, "If a relationship couldn't form between you and Lin Shi earlier, it won't form now either." Hearing this, Yi Chung gets even more annoyed, and Chen Wen leaves. On the other hand, Lin Shi goes to her room and feels very upset. She recalls the conversations during lunch and tries to distract herself, but emotions overwhelm her. Then at night, Lin Shi gets a call from her dad who asks, "Who are you spending your birthday with?" Lin Shi says, "I'm spending my birthday with work." Her dad says, "Maybe someone has arranged a surprise birthday party for you." Lin Shi says, "That won't happen. I don't have many friends at work." And she cuts the call. The next day, everyone goes to the amusement park. A colleague says, "Should we wait for Yi Chung?" An assistant says, "No, he's on a business trip. He might not come back today." Then Tong Xin says to Lin Shi, "Yi Chung said he would come as soon as he is free." Then workers from both UE and Hushing companies gather in one place. Tong Xin says, "Now we will form teams, and each team will have 2 people. The team that takes the most rides by 6 p.m. will get a computer gift from UE. Then everyone forms teams. Peter forms a team with Lin Shi, and Chung Yao forms a team with Tong Xin. Then Peter and Lin Shi have a friendly interaction. Peter says, "I want to go to that castle and see the princess." Lin Shi laughs and says, "Do boys also like to see princesses?" Then Peter remembers his mom and leaves. When Peter goes back to his mom, Chung Yao asks him, "Why did you come back?" Peter says, "I wanted to form a team with my mom." Lin Shi is standing outside the castle, and some girls are running towards her. Seeing them, she starts to fall, but Yi Chung saves her from falling. Lin Shi, surprised, asks, "Weren't you on a business trip?" Yi Chung says, "Do you really want me to go on a business trip?" Lin Shi says, "Your colleagues said so." Yi Chung says, "How could I forget such an important day?" Lin Shi says, "You still remember?" Yi Chung says, "Yes." Then Yi Chung and Lin Shi go inside the castle and come out to see the princess. Lin Shi sits on a bench and Yi Chung brings her coffee. Then Yi Chung goes somewhere. After he leaves, Lin Shi starts walking. Then Yi Chung comes back with many balloons for Lin Shi. Lin Shi says, "You are very childish." Yi Chung tries to give these balloons to Lin Shi, but Lin Shi refuses. Yi Chung then lets go of the balloons. Lin Shi tries to catch them and gets close to Yi Chung. Now both are looking at each other. Lin Shi remembers her past. Just then, Yi Chung is about to kiss her, but a call comes in, and he says to Lin Shi, "I have to go, there's some urgent work." Saying this, he leaves. Then everyone gathers for the winner's announcement. The assistant announces, "The gift has been won by Chung Yao and Tong Xin's team." Hearing this, everyone claps for Chung Yao and Tong Xin. Then the assistant says, "Those who didn't win the gift, don't be sad. We have also arranged a dress-up banquet for all of you. One person among you will get a mysterious gift prepared by us for this banquet." The assistant calls Tong Xin to draw a name, and the name is none other than Lin Shi. Then Lin Shi goes into a room where there is a wardrobe. She opens it and finds a very beautiful dress. Seeing this dress, Lin Shi is very surprised. Then Lin Shi comes out wearing her dress. Peter, seeing her, starts singing happy birthday for her. Then everyone else also sings happy birthday for Lin Shi. Lin Shi is very happy to see the surprise party. A cake is also arranged for her, with a cute princess on it. Yi-chung comes to Lin Shi and says happy birthday to her. He then asks her to make a wish and blow out the candles. Lin Shi makes a wish and blows out the candles. Then everyone celebrates Lin Shi's birthday and enjoys a lot. At night, Yi-chung says to Lin Shi, "I need your help with my AI doctor project." Lin Shi also helps him. When Yi-chung finishes his work and Lin Shi is about to leave, Yi-chung stops her and says, "I love you." Saying this, he hugs her, but Lin Shi doesn't say yes yet. Then a restaurant owner, who is Lin Shi's classmate, calls Lin Shi and invites her to dinner at his restaurant. He says, "Some other classmates are also coming." Lin Shi asks, "Will Yi-chung also come?" He says, "Yes, he will." Then Lin Shi gets ready to go. At the restaurant, Yi-chung and Lin Shi meet. Chen Wen also comes and flirts with Yi-chung, saying, "If I had known the interview would end early, I would have picked you up." Yi-chung takes Lin Shi's hand and goes inside. At the restaurant, college classmates talk about Lin Shi and Yi-chung's relationship. Hearing this, Chen Wen feels jealous. After dinner, Chen Wen tries to talk to Yi-chung, but Yi-chung keeps Lin Shi with him and says, "Whatever you want to say it in front of her." Chen Wen says, "I love you very much." Yi-chung replies, "I don't love you. I only love Lin Shi." Saying this, he takes Lin Shi's hand and leaves. During the walk, Lin Shi tells Yi-chung the real reason for their breakup. "I got a big opportunity from Hashing Company and I didn't want to lose it, so I broke up." Saying this, Lin Shi starts to leave, but Yi-chung tries to stop her. They come close to each other and then kiss. Then, Yi-chung and Lin Shi meet at the mall and enjoy a lot. They shop, play games, watch a movie, and then spend time together. Then they go to the place where they first met. There, they refresh their old memories. Then they go and sit in a classroom. There, a boy flirts with Lin Shi. Yi-chung feels very jealous and complains to the teacher. The teacher asks Lin Shi, "Is that boy bothering you?" Lin Shi replies, "No, he was just talking to me." At night, when they are working together in the office, Chung Yao sees them and leaves feeling sad. After that, they are in the office, where Yi-chung teases Lin Shi and starts drinking from her cup. Tong Xin says, "This cup belongs to Lin Shi." Yi-chung replies, "Yes, I know. I liked it, so I took it." Later, Lin Shi meets Yi-chung and tells him not to do that. She says, "We should keep our work and personal life separate." Then Lin Shi kisses Yi-chung. When Yi-chung is about to kiss Lin Shi again, a worker comes in. Yi-chung tells him to leave. Then Lin Shi pushes Yi-chung away. At night, when Yi-chung comes home, Lin Shi is already there waiting for him. Yi-chung hugs her. Then Lin Shi says, "Today, I'll cook for you." Just then, Yi-chung gets a call from Tong Xin and goes to take the call. Lin Shi starts cooking for Yi-chung. When Yi-chung finishes the call, he comes and hugs Lin Shi, asking, "What are you cooking?" Lin Shi says, "I'm making noodles." Then Lin Shi says to Yi-chung, "You go and rest for a while. I'll bring the noodles." Yi-chung leaves. When the noodles are ready, Lin Shi comes to call him. She sees that Yi-chung has fallen asleep. She puts a shawl over him, but Yi-chung wakes up and comes to eat the noodles. When he is eating noodles, Lin Shi says to Yi-chung, "You have changed a lot from before." Yi-chung asks, "How?" Lin Shi says, "Now you are more consistent and have learned to compromise." Yi-chung jokes, "Would you like the old me or the new me?" Lin Shi says, "It doesn't matter. I have always loved you." Hearing this, Yi-chung becomes happy and rests his head on Lin Shi's shoulder. The next morning, Lin Shi and Yi-chung leave their house. Lin Shi is listening to a call where a US company has received Chinese radish, which was a translation mistake. The company is asking for an explanation. Lin Shi goes to the office and starts investigating the problem, but her boss, Mr. Yang, says, "If the mistake turns out to be Lin Shi's, you will have to take responsibility." Lin Shi's team checks all the emails and finds that a file is missing in the company. Then Chen Wen remembers that she deleted a document, but she lies. "I don't know anything about this." Lin Shi is stressed. Just then, Yi Chung sends lunch for her. Then Lin Shi's seniors have a meeting and ask her for an explanation. Lin Shi takes responsibility and tries to convince everyone. Actually, the in charge of this project was Tan Sha. Tan Sha becomes very sad with all this and is about to resign, but Tian tears up her resignation letter. Tian says to her, "You are capable, and you don't need to take the responsibility." Outside, reporters are waiting for Lin Shi. When Lin Shi comes there, they ask her many questions, but Lin Shi does not answer any of their questions. Then Yi Ching comes there and rescues Lin Shi from the reporters and takes her away with a legal warning. Then Yi Chun takes Lin Shi and says, "I will book a ticket for you so that you can relax on a vacation for a few days." Lin Shi says, "Running away like this is not my style." Yi Chun says, "Okay." Lin Shi says, "You don't need to come with me, you can go back to your work." Yi Chun says, "Supporting you is the most important thing for me." Hearing this, Lin Shi feels good. Then Yi Chun says to Lin Shi, "You must be hungry, what do you want to eat?" Lin Shi says, "I am not hungry at all." Yi Chun says, "But I am hungry, so you will give me company for lunch." Lin Shi agrees. Then Yi Chung takes Lin Shi to a stall. Lin Shi becomes happy seeing this. Yi Chung brings candy from the stall for Lin Shi, and then they both sit on the side. Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, "You take the first bite because it is the sweetest." Then the stall owner comes to Lin Shi and says, "Last time when you came to my stall, you were drunk." Lin Shi says, "Your memory is quite good." The owner gives Lin Shi and Yi Chung another candy and says, "This is a gift from my side for both of you." This granny gives it with love, so Lin Shi accepts the gift. While eating candy, Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, "You should resign." Lin Shi says, "Do you want me to go back to Singapore?" Yi Chung says, "I can financially support you." Lin Shi says, "Are you proposing to me?" Yi Chung seriously says, "My household register is in my car." Lin Shi takes it as a joke, but Yi Chung says, "I am serious." Then Yi Chung and Lin Shi go to the beach, and Yi Chung says, "Sometimes the enemy is close to us and we do not recognize it." Hearing this, Lin Shi becomes suspicious and goes to the office and says to Mr. Yang, "It might be that someone deleted that email to put my name on it." Then the investigation of her department begins. Mr. Liu says, "If Lin Shi cannot prove anything, she will have to resign." Lin Shi says, "Okay, I will resign." Then computers are checked and it is found that the email was deleted. That Mr. Yang asks Lin Shi, "Who could have deleted it?" Lin Shi says, "At the time this email was deleted, I was in a meeting." Lin Shi then requests the CCTV footage, which reveals that Chen Wen deleted the email. Lin Shi goes to Chen Wen's house with Yi Chung. She asks Yi Chung to wait by the car and goes to Chen Wen herself. Lin Shi says to Chen Wen, "Admit your mistake." Chen Wen admits her mistake and says, "You scolded me a lot that day, so I did it." Lin Shi explains to her, "I was training you." But Chen Wen becomes emotional, says many things, and says, "I don't have big dreams like you. I just want to live a comfortable life." Lin Shi says to her, "Come and resign tomorrow," and leaves. Yi Chung is waiting for Lin Shi downstairs. When Lin Shi arrives, he asks her, "Are you okay?" Lin Shi, also emotional, hugs Yi Chung. Then at home, Lin Shi is thinking about what Chen Wen said. Yi Chung says, "Leave this matter and move on." Yi Chung then comes up with the idea of a trip and, hanging a world map on the wall, says to Lin Shi, "You choose the destination." Lin Shi says, "I have already made my travel plan." Hearing this, Yi Chung becomes a bit embarrassed. Lin Shi says goodbye to him and says they will meet next week. Next week? Hearing this, Yi Chung is shocked. The next morning, Yi Chung is waiting outside Lin Shi's house. As soon as Lin Shi comes out, Yi Chung brings his bag and says, "I am going with you." Lin Shi says to him, "You don't even know where I am going." Yi Chung confidently says, "Wherever you go, I will go." While they are traveling together, Lin Shi guides him. Yi Chung asks, "How do you know so much about this area?" Lin Shi says, "We are going to my parents' house." Hearing this, Yi Chung is surprised and says, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Lin Shi laughs and says, "You yourself said it doesn't matter." On the way, Yi Chung stops the car at a place and goes into a store to buy expensive wine. The saleslady says to him, "You won't get wine here, but fruits are the best gift." Yi Chung brings this gift back. Lin Shi asks, "What did you get?" Yi Chung says, "Local special fruit." He then tries to hide his nervousness from Lin Shi, but Lin Shi says, "You look a bit nervous." Then they both go to meet Lin Shi's parents. Lin Shi says, "My dad is a farmer and my mom is a teacher." They then arrive at Lin Shi's parents' house. Yi Chung is surprised by the place. He asks, "Why have we been invited to a resort?" Lin Shi says, "This is our home." Inside, Lin Shi meets her dad and introduces Yi Ching. Seeing the gifts, Lin Shi's dad says, "Are these for me?" Yi Ching apologetically says, "I couldn't bring a good gift for you in a hurry, so I brought these fruits from the way." Lin Shi's dad jokingly makes fun of the gifts, making Yi Ching nervous. Lin Shi enjoys this joke. Then Lin Shi's dad says, "These fruits are from our farm." Hearing this, Yi Ching is surprised. Lin Shi, but her dad doesn't. He thinks of testing him. Lin Shi then shows Yi Ching her parents' work and says, "We have an ecological farm, hotel, and tourism business." Yi Ching is impressed and says, "There was no need to raise funds. I would have come straight to your parents." Hearing this, Lin Shi laughs. Then everyone is eating, and Lin Shi's dad says, "If Yi Ching wants to marry my daughter, he will have to pass a test." The villagers bring food for Yi Ching, and he has to eat everything. Yi Ching is ready for the test and eats many dishes, but the food never seems to end. Then Lin Shi's dad says, "Love is not proved by eating food." He says, "I made a cabinet myself for Lin Shi's mom." Yi Ching says, "I can make one too." Then, Lin Shi's dad challenges Yi Ching to make a beautiful sofa. Yi Ching accepts the challenge. Then, Lin Shi's dad gives him some medicine before leaving. After Lin Shi's dad leaves, Lin Shi's mom says to Yi Ching, "He seems tough on the outside, but he cares for you on the inside." Saying this, she also leaves. Lin Shi gives Yi Ching the medicine. Then Lin Shi's mom asks her dad, "Why did you give Yi Ching the challenge to make a sofa?" Dad says, "I want a husband for Lin Shi who can handle her. No matter how much he earns, his values should be good." On the other hand, Lin Shi asks Yi Ching, "Are you feeling a little better now?" Yi Ching says, "Not yet." Lin Shi says, "My dad is quite strict." Yi Ching confidently says, "I will face all the challenges, whether it's making a sofa or anything else." Lin Shi laughs and says, "It wasn't easy for my dad to make a sofa. If you do this, maybe he will accept you." Yi Ching shows confidence and they both support each other. Meanwhile, Cheng Yao is working in his room when Tong Xin comes and says, "Can you take care of Peter?" She tells him, "I urgently need Yi Cheng's signatures, so I am going to the village." Cheng Yao insists, "I will come with you," but Tong Xin refuses. Then Peter says, "Let's all go together and I will meet my dad." Tong Xin agrees. When they are going, Peter falls asleep in the car. Then Tong Xin comes to sit next to Cheng Yao in the car. Meanwhile, Lin Shi and Yi Ching are walking and talking when Cheng Yao and Tong Xin reach them. Cheng Yao asks, "What are you doing here at this time of night?" Lin Shi says, "A walk is necessary for digestion." Then Yi Ching asks about Peter. Tong Xin says, "Peter is sleeping in the car." Yi Ching goes to bring him from the car. Lin Shi says to them, "Now that you are here, stay for a few days." The next morning, Yi Ching goes to collect bamboo. While cutting bamboo, he gets cuts on his hands. Lin Shi sees his hand and applies medicine, saying, "Whether the sofa gets made or not, I will always support you." Hearing this, Yi Ching says, "I should have recorded this." The next morning, Yi Ching tries his best to make the sofa from bamboo, and Lin Shi supports him. Then Yi Ching makes a bamboo sofa and table. Lin Shi's mom is very impressed seeing the sofa, and Lin Shi's dad tests it. For the test, they ask Peter and Cheng Yao to jump on the sofa, but the sofa is strong. Lin Shi says to her dad, "Dad, now you can't break your promise." Yi Ching says to Lin Shi's dad, "I know you love Lin Shi, so it's taking time for you to trust me, but I will definitely win your trust one day." Lin Shi's dad likes the sofa, and everyone happily talks about dinner. In the morning, Yi Ching drops Lin Shi at the office and says, "Shall I come upstairs with you?" Lin Shi says, "I can go by myself. Now I am strong and energetic." Lin Shi says bye to Yi Ching and goes to the office. Today, there is a shocking event in the office. A punishment notice is issued for Lin Shi. The notice states, Lin Shi is no longer the director of her department, and Lu has been appointed in her place. Additionally, Lin Shi has been transferred to Team 3 of the translation department. Everyone is shocked to see the notice. Lin Shi packs her belongings and leaves the office when her team members show their transfer letters and say, "We are ready to be transferred with you." Lin Shi explains to them, "Everyone should stay in their respective departments and perform well. If you want, you can come to the translation department to meet me." Then Lin Shi returns home. She sees Grandma standing with her luggage. Lin Shi asks her, "Where are you going?" Grandma says, "I'm going to meet Cheng Yao." Then Grandma, Li, and Lin Shi go to meet Cheng Yao. There, Grandma says to him, "Staying in Tong Xin's house is not right. You should come back." Cheng Yao refuses, but Grandma says, "If you don't want to come back, then look for another house to rent." She gives him some papers with advertisements for houses. Grandma says, "Look at any of these houses." Later, when Tong Xin comes home, she sees these advertisements and thinks, maybe Cheng Yao is leaving the house. In the next scene, Lin Shi goes to the library and is taking out a book. Just then, Yi Ching comes and helps her. Lin Shi is surprised to see him. They are looking at each other when Yi Chung's call comes and he leaves. Lin Shi laughs watching him leave. Then Yi Chung comes to Lin Shi and says, "My parents are coming here soon." Lin Shi says, "Let me know what they like, and I will prepare for it." Yi Chung says, "Okay." Lin Shi quickly packs up her books and leaves. Yi Chung wanted to talk to her, and when Lin Shi is putting her books back, Yi Chung comes to her and says, "I have been with you for so long, don't you think I deserve a reward?" Lin Shi says to Yi Chung, "I will cook for you tonight." Yi Chung says, "Don't cook dinner, give me some other reward." Lin Shi says, "I will think of a gift and let you know." Then, Yi Chung drops her home, and Lin Shi kisses him saying, "This is your reward." In the next scene, Lin Shi's grandpa, Professor Gao, has a birthday. Meanwhile, Tan Shasha's mom introduces her father to his old friend Xiao. Then they all sit down at a table. During the conversation, Xiao's wife tells Tan Shasha's mom about her son. "My son runs a translation company which he set up abroad." Hearing this, Tan Shasha, sitting nearby, eagerly asks, "Is the company's name Yue? And is your son's name Yi Chung?" Mrs. Xiao says in surprise, "Yes, but how do you know him?" Tan Shasha says, "He is our client." Hearing this, both moms become very happy because they were silently thinking about a match between the two. Just then, Yi Chung calls his mom outside. As soon as his mom comes, Yi Chung gives her his dad's medicines and is about to leave. But his mom stops him and says, "I want to introduce you to a girl." Yi Chung says uninterestedly, "I have no interest in any girl." Before he leaves, his mom adds a twist. She is Professor Gao's granddaughter. Hearing this, Yi Chung stops and asks eagerly, "Which granddaughter are you talking about?" Yi Chung's mom says, "She is an interpreter who works at Hoxing." Hearing this, Yi Chung thinks she is talking about Lin Shi and then says, "I will stay for a while." After that, he goes with his mom to wish Professor Gao a happy birthday. Just then, Lin Shi also sees Yi Chung, and seeing this, Lin Shi's dad confusedly asks, "Did you invite him?" Lin Shi denies it and says, "No, I didn't know he would come here either." Everyone is surprised to see Yi Chung with Professor Gao. Then, Yi Chung looks at Lin Shi and texts, "Now you won't be bored." Then, Tan Shasha's mom says to Yi Chung's mom, "Your son and my daughter have many things in common." Hearing this, Yi Chung and Tan Shasha feel awkward, and Tan Shasha says, "We don't know each other well." During dinner, Yi Chung's mom asks for more information about Professor Gao's family. Then, Professor Gao casually mentions, "We have another granddaughter named Lin Shi." Hearing this, Yi Chung's mom is surprised. Then, Lin Shi's dad finally confronts Yi Chung and says, "Are you dating Tan Shasha?" Yi Chung explains to Lin Shi's dad, "I am not wrong. Lin Shi is my girlfriend." But Lin Shi's dad misunderstands him and tells him to stay away. Tan Shasha's mom accuses Lin Shi, "You are deliberately insulting us." Lin Shi says, "Yi Chung has been my boyfriend from the beginning." An argument ensues between Lin Shi and Tan Shasha's mom, with Lin Shi's mom supporting her. Just then, Professor Gao's health deteriorates, and everyone rushes him to the hospital. Later, Tan Shasha and her mom are sitting in the lawn and talking. Tan Shasha says to her mom, "Why didn't you tell me earlier that you were setting up a blind date for me and Yi Chung?" Tan Shasha's mom says, "Yi Chung is a good boy." So Tan Shasha says to her, "I have a boyfriend named Tian, and he is my college mate. Don't do this again." Meanwhile, Lin Shi and Yi Chung are walking and talking. Yi Chung apologetically says, "I shouldn't have come to Grandpa's birthday party without informing you." Lin Shi says, "It wasn't your fault." Then, Yi Chung jokingly says, "If you don't forgive me, I won't let you go." Lin Shi smiles. When Yi Chung is about to kiss her, an old lady with her dog comes and taunts them before leaving. On the other hand, Chung Yao is packing his belongings when the manager comes and asks him to pack quickly. Peter hears this and says to Chung Yao, "You broke my expensive toy, you can't leave until you fix it." He adds, "I know you don't want to leave." Chung Yao says, "Yes, I don't want to leave." Peter says, "I am ready to sacrifice my toy for you." Then Chung Yao and Peter break the toy and start a drama. Peter tells his mom, "Chung Yao broke my limited edition toy." Tong Xin says, "Chung Yao will have to leave the house." Just then, Lin Shi and Yi Chung also arrive and join Chung Yao and Peter in the drama. Then Tong Xin tells Chung Yao to stay, making Peter very happy. When they are leaving, Lin Shi says, "Chung Yao is good and Peter likes him too. Tong Xin and Chung Yao will make a good pair." Yi Chung says, "I think it won't be easy for Tong Xin. She has been through a bad experience before." Then Yi Chung gets a call from his mom, who asks about Professor Gao's health. Yi Chung says, his condition is stable now, but he will have to stay in the hospital for a few days. Then Yi Chung's mom asks him about Lin Shi, and Yi Chung says, I will explain all the details to you another day. A few days later, Yi Chung and Lin Shi's parents meet at a restaurant. There is a good understanding between the two families. Yi Chung's mom asks Lin Shi's parents, what do you think about Lin Shi and Yi Chung's marriage? Lin Shi's dad is a bit surprised, but her mom replies, if we decide quickly, the preparations will be easier. Yi Chung's dad shares his thoughts and says, a wedding photo shoot in France would be interesting. Lin Shi excitedly says, I also want to go to France. Then Lin Shi is working at home, and Yi Chung plans to try something new while giving her a massage. Yi Chung brings a massager for Lin Shi and adjusts the gear while massaging her, but Lin Shi feels a bit of pain and teasingly says, are you taking revenge on me? Yi Chung jokingly replies, I was just testing the gears. Lin Shi, while massaging Yi Chung in return, adjusts the gears even more, causing Yi Chung to actually start feeling pain. Yi Chung finally admits, I am in a lot of pain. Were you trying to kill me? Lin Shi laughs and says, I didn't want to kill you, and they both start laughing. Then Lin Shi kisses Yi Chung, and Yi Chung says, it's hard for me to move. Lin Shi says, sit down first. But Yi Chung jokes, I still can't move. Then Lin Shi takes Yi Chung to the doctor. The doctor says to Lin Shi, don't apply too much pressure on specific points. It can be dangerous and can cause cardiac arrest. Lin Shi asks, what will be the treatment? The doctor says, I will give some medicines. The patient will be fine in 3 to 4 days. Saying this, the doctor goes to get the medicine. Lin Shi asks Yi Chung, are you still in pain? Yi Chung says, yes. Lin Shi says, I will ask the doctor for a painkiller. But Yi Chung refuses and says, if you kiss me, my pain will reduce. When Lin Shi is about to kiss him, the doctor comes back and stops them. The doctor gives the medicine and says, Yi Chung will have to be careful now. On the other hand, when Tong Xin is going somewhere, Chung Yao says to her, I will go with you. Meanwhile, Lin Shi tells her teammates to take a break. Everyone goes outside, then Yi Chung comes there and says, I have brought food for you. They eat together and feed each other. Miss Shu comes there and is surprised to see Yi Chung. Lin Shi says, Yi Chung has come to see the progress here. Ling Fang says, it doesn't look like that. It seems he has come to eat. Yi Chung says, I have brought food for everyone. Then Lin Shi shows Yi Chung the progress in the office and writes, will you leave now? Yi Chung says, I have come to pick up my girlfriend. Lin Shi and Yi Chung try to hide their relationship in the office, but then Chung Yao comes there and accidentally tells everyone. Everyone is shocked to hear this. Then Lin Shi and Yi Chung leave the office. In the next scene, Lin Shi comes to meet Yi Chung at his house and looks at his neck and asks, are you still in pain? Yi Chung says, it hurts so much that I can't sleep well at night. Then Yi Chung says, I need psychological comfort, and hugs Lin Shi. Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, now that everyone knows we are together, you should move into my house. Lin Shi says, okay. Yi Chung, surprised, says, you agreed so quickly? Lin Shi replies, believe it or not, I am moving in. Yi Chung says, then don't tell your dad. Lin Shi says, all this can only happen in your dreams. Hearing this, Yi Chung becomes a little upset. The next day, at the UE listing ceremony, Yi Chang gives his speech. Then Lin Shi gets busy with her work, and when she comes out of the office, Yi Chung meets her. Lin Shi says, what are you doing here? You should be at the celebration party. Yi Chung says, I am stuck with a client's translation. Help me. Yi Chung takes Lin Shi inside, where a line appears on the screen in different languages, all meaning the same thing. Yi Chung is asking Lin Shi to marry him. Lin Shi is surprised, and Yi Chung shows her his tablet with yes and no options. Lin Shi chooses no, but yes appears everywhere on the screen. Yi Chung laughs and says, I hoped there was more yes in your heart. Lin Shi says yes. Yi Chung becomes happy and loudly says, Lin Shi has said yes. Everyone comes to the celebration and enjoys the moment. Lin Shi says in surprise, you were in such a hurry? Then everyone congratulates Lin Shi. Yi Chung kneels down, shows Lin Shi the ring and asks, will you marry me? Lin Shi extends her hand and wears the ring. They are both very happy and kiss each other. Everyone is very happy for them. Then Tong Xin sees that Chung Yao has fixed Peter's toy. Tong Xin says to Chung Yao, now that you have fixed the toy, you should leave here tomorrow morning. Chung Yao says, I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you and Peter. Tong Xin says, tell me, should I choose between Peter and you? Chung Yao asks, what do you mean? Tong Xin explains, there's a condition in my divorce. If I remarry, I will lose custody of Peter. Now you tell me, should I choose between you and Peter? Saying this, Tong Xin leaves. On the other hand, the assistant tells Yi Chung about a shop and says, they have very good wedding dresses here. He shows Yi Chung some photos of the wedding dresses from that shop. Yi Chung then sends those photos to Lin Shi. Lin Shi looks at those photos, and then Yi Chung calls her and says, "After lunch, let's go shopping today." Lin Shi agrees. In the next scene, Tan Sha and Lin Shi both arrive at the wedding shop and look at the wedding dresses. Then Lin Shi starts waiting for Yi Chung. On the other side, Yi Chung is doing some important work when Lin Shi's call comes. Lin Shi says, "How long will it take for you to come?" Yi Chung says, "It will take me 40 minutes, but I am trying to come quickly." Then Lin Shi waits for Yi Chung. After a while, Yi Chung arrives there and apologizes for being late. Lin Shi says, "It's okay. Let's look at suits for you." Then they both sit with Tian and Tan Sha. The worker shows suits to Yi Chung. Soon he selects a suit, and the worker says, "This dress will be ready in 5 days." Then Lin Shi says, "I have a meeting at 8 o'clock. So she leaves. Yi Chung runs to Lin Shi and talks about dinner, but Lin Shi leaves citing work. In the evening, when Yi Chung comes home, he brings a cake for Lin Shi. Lin Shi seems a bit sad, so Yi Chung asks her, "What's the matter?" Lin Shi says, "Because of the new project of Hashing and Yue, we are becoming competitors." Yi Chung explains to her, "It's just a competition, and competitions come and go in life." Then, Lin Shi and Yi Chung make some new rules, deciding not to talk about work after work hours. In the next scene, Lin Shi asks Yi Chung, "What is the budget for the wedding ring?" Yi Chung takes out his card and gives it to Lin Shi, saying, "I will spend all my savings on the wedding preparations." Then Yi Chung and Lin Shi are going shopping, but then Yi Chung gets a call from the company that some urgent work has come up. Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, "We won't be able to go shopping today, an urgent matter has come up." Then Yi Chung leaves. Lin Shi feels a bit sad about all this. The next day, Director Dong comes to inspect Yue. They inspect Yi Chung's doctor robot and approve it. Director Dong is impressed with Chung Yao's technology and decides to support their project. Then the news shows that a new virus has affected Africa. There is a meeting at Hashing where Mr. Yang talks about sending medical staff along with translators. Tian, Tan Sha, and some other employees are ready to go. Then Lin Shi takes Yi Chung to a park where they have many college memories. Then both of them get lost in old memories and spend time with each other. When they reach home, Lin Shi remembers that she left her keys at the office. Yi Chung says, "Stay at my house tonight." Lin Shi agrees. Lin Shi then freshens up and sits down to work. Yi Chung says to her, "It's very late. Do you still have to work?" Lin Shi replies, "I have to confirm a document. If you are sleepy, go to sleep." Yi Chung lies and says, "I have to answer an email." But in reality, he just wants Lin Shi's attention. When Lin Shi finishes her work and is about to go to bed, Yi Chung asks, "Where are you sleeping?" Lin Shi says to him, "You sleep here on the sofa, and I will sleep in your bedroom." Then she makes weekend plans and says, "Tomorrow we will have fun." The next morning, when Lin Shi wakes up, Yi Chung hugs her and asks about the weekend plans. Lin Shi says, "We will enjoy at home this weekend." Then both of them have breakfast together and enjoy. The next day, Lin Shi is called to the office and is made in charge of a competition project. This competition was to take place between Lin Shi's and Yi Chung's companies. Mr. Yang says, "Now you are in charge of this project. Don't get involved in any scandal because of your relationship with Yi Chung." Then Lin Shi and Yi Chung's parents meet each other and are deciding on the venue for Lin Shi and Yi Chung's wedding. Lin Shi feels a lot of pressure and says, "I don't want to get married so soon. I want to get married next summer." Hearing this, Yi Chung feels sad. Then Lin Shi's mom explains to her, "You have to decide for yourself what is more important, career or relationship." Yi Chung then directly asks Lin Shi, "Do you really want to postpone the wedding?" Lin Shi explains, "This decision is because of our different goals. The wedding will happen when we fully understand each other." The next morning, Yi Chung makes breakfast for Lin Shi and calls her, but her number is busy. Then the day of the competition arrives. Yi Chung and Lin Shi reach the event with their teams. Lin Shi gives her presentation first, which is quite impressive. Then Yi Chung's team introduces their innovative translation device. Yi Chung explains to everyone, "Our device can accurately translate 200 languages and is also affordable." After the presentation, everyone is impressed and waits for the results. When the results are announced, Yi Chung's team wins. On the other hand, Lin Shi's team loses, making them all quite sad. Then Lin Shi finds out that she has been transferred to another department. She feels that the company is not being fair to her. Then Lin Shi meets Yi Chung and tells him everything. Hearing all this, Yi Chung supports Lin Shi, and they start getting closer. Then Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, "You should resign and think about your dreams, especially joining the United Nations, a dream you had for 8 years. Lin Shi is confused, but then decides, "I won't leave Hashing." Then Yi Chung takes Lin Shi to the office and recites an English poem from their college days, which is translated into different languages through Yue's translation device. Lin Shi realizes how powerful AI is and decides to use this technology to make her dream a reality. Yi Chung promises to support her, and they both get involved in the mission to bring China's voice to the world. In the next scene, Lin Shi meets a guest, Mr. Anderson, who is struggling with his speech because his son is behaving aggressively. Mr. Anderson explains, "My son has a disease." Lin Shi handles his son. Lin Shi comforts him by telling the story of the Little Prince, which everyone likes. After his speech, Mr. Anderson thanks her and leaves. Seeing all this, Yi Chung says to Lin Shi, "Machines cannot deliver emotions, so human translation is essential." Lin Shi agrees and says, "Both industries have their own importance." While talking, Yi Chung reveals his proposal to Lin Shi and says, "I want to marry you." Lin Shi happily agrees. The next morning, Lin Shi finds out that she has an opportunity to become a resident interpreter at the UN. Yi Chung encourages her by reminding her of her dream. A scene is then shown a few years later where Lin Shi is abroad for her work, and at the same time, Tan Sha and Tian are getting married. Tan Sha reminds Lin Shi on a call, "You didn't come to the wedding." Tian jokes, "Lin Shi, you were supposed to give us a red packet." Lin Shi laughs and says, "I have already transferred the money to Tan Sha's account." Yi Chung is also abroad with Lin Shi. Then everyone jokes and reminisces about old times. After the video call, Lin Shi and Yi Chung sit on a bench and remember their old days. Yi Chung says, "Today marks 12 years since our first meeting." Lin Shi smiles and corrects him, "It's only been 11 years. A flashback shows how Lin Shi and Yi Chung first met. Lin Shi was passionate about her career and had inspired Yi Chung with her words. Yi Chung admits, "Those words of yours have always been a source of inspiration for me." Today, Lin Shi has become a successful interpreter and says, "No matter what position one holds, if they are working for their passion, they always shine." Yi Chung asks, "Where do you want to shine now?" Lin Shi smiles and says, "There is a place where I want to go." Yi Chung says, "I will respect your choice." Then Lin Shi and Yi Chung celebrate their happiness. Yi Chung and Lin Shi kiss each other, and with that, this drama concludes. How much rating would you give this drama, and which was your favorite scene? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos.